Good morning. Today's date is April 12th, 2007. My name is Tyrone Belanger. Today I will be conducting an oral history interview with William Lander for the Veterans History Project in partnership with the Dalton Council on Aging. This interview is being held at the Dalton Community Television Studio in Dalton, Massachusetts. Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
Would you please state your full name and spell your last name for us?
William A. Lander, Lander.
Thank you. Where do you presently live?
Pittsfield.
That's Pittsfield, Mass.
Pittsfield,
Right?
Mass.
What is your date of birth and where were you born?
It's November 30th, 1925 in Pittsfield.
Did you grow up and go to school there?
Yes, I went to Pine School and I went to Pittsfield High School where I graduated pro-marital in 1943.
Thank you. What was life like for you growing up at this time during the Depression?
Well, we had a good time, but we also didn't have any money at all. We didn't have, the teachers used to tell us that you can come to school with torn pants, but don't come when they're dirty. And that solved a lot of our problems.
Now, you mentioned learning how to swim.
Yeah, we swam at the boys' club. We used to swim in the canal. All the kids from the north end used to go up the canal and swim up there.
What was the canal off of?
It was off Hancock Road. It ran underneath the Hancock Road from the dam, Pontuzic Lake Dam, and into the mill. It ran the mill.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that's where you learned how to swim?
Yeah.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I had a brother.
Was he a veteran?
He was a veteran. He went in after I came out, but the war was still sufficiently not over, and he was down in Camp Polk, Louisiana, and down in Camp in New Jersey, Fort Dix.
He was lucky he didn't have to go overseas.
Right, he was just 2 years younger than me.
What did your dad do for a living?
He worked in a GE. He was a die grinder.
A die grinder?
Yeah.
Could you explain that at all?
Well, the things that punch out the production machines that punch presses, they have to have a die. And what he would do is resharpen the dies. I'd put them in a grinder and grind it down a little to resharpen it up so that it would punch out the pieces.
Okay. Was he a veteran?
No, he wasn't.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes, I did.
What year was that?
1943.
43.
Yeah.
What did you do after you finished high school?
Well, before I finished high school, I was out working in a machine shop near Silver Lake. It was a triplex machine company. From there, I went in the Navy.
You did that after school and then
After school and then
the last summer or the
Yeah.
summer after high school?
Yeah. Well, the summer after high school, as soon as I graduated, like in June, July 19th, I was in the Navy.
You go right into the Navy?
Yeah.
Where did you enlist?
In Pittsfield, right at the post office. We're at the post office.
What
So
branch?
where the city hall is now, actually,
Yeah, right.
upstairs.
What branch of the service did you join?
Navy.
Navy.
Well, I was the first naval reservist, one of them. In fact, all the guys on our ship are all reservists, Navy reservists.
The whole ship?
Most of them.
Wow.
There was several, I would say a handful of them were regular Navy, 4 or 6 years, whatever they signed up for.
Yeah.
But most of the guys were USNR, reserves,
How old were you when you entered the service?
17.
And what were your dates of service?
July 19th, 1943 to May 1st, 1946.
Thank you. Why did you choose the Navy?
I was always, I liked the water. We went swimming on a daily basis. And I just liked the water, and I liked the Navy. It could give you a trade as well. I mean, I went to school, and that was something I wanted to do. I was in the machine shop at Pittsville High, and I wanted to be a machinist, so the Navy gave me a little bit more.
Good training?
Yeah, more training.
Tell me where you were sent for boot camp.
I went to Sampson, New York, which is up near Syracuse.
Can you describe some of your basic training, or experiences, I should say?
We had a lot of drilling, a lot of, we had a work week, and we also had a lot of military stuff, like you got to shave on a daily basis, 17 or not, you shaved.
You mentioned a little experience you had during boot camp involving boxing.
Well, I was kind of small, and before I could get my gloves on, I got a punch in the face. So I decided that I was going to get out there first the next time, and that's what happened. From there on in, I was out there first with the gloves, all tied up and everything.
You didn't give the next guy a chance.
No, I already got the wrong end of the thing out as it was.
Was it hard to adjust to this new life?
No, for me it really wasn't, because I was in the Scouts and we had the same thing, you know, the military stuff. And it was, I wanted to go anyway. I joined up to go, so it wasn't that much of a problem for me.
Adjustment.
No.
What type of training did you get in basic training, at basic training?
Well, we just got regular stuff, swimming. We had to jump off a tower and that type of stuff. We had to swim. And if you didn't know how to swim, they would teach you how to swim. But you had to go to classes and stuff.
You had to learn?
You had to learn.
And some of the fellas didn't know how to swim?
They didn't know how to swim at all.
Now, you mentioned rope training.
Yeah, we had to climb up ropes. And
this was involved with the Navy?
Yeah. Well, we had to get on a tower, get into a life raft, roll out the other side, and climb a rope at the end that was all full of water. I mean, the guys were all going over in the slipperies all outdoors. And you had to go up and touch a thing and then come down. Well, sometimes it happened and sometimes it didn't.
Now, any other training in weapons or anything?
Oh yeah, we had weapon training.
How long was boot camp?
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
Can you describe how you felt on the day you graduated from boot camp, knowing you had successfully finished?
Well, it was a relief, and it was a stay at home for a couple of, a week or so, and it was great actually.
You got furlough?
Yeah, we got a furlough. Yeah.
And how long was that?
Something like a week.
Week?
7 days, something like that.
What was it like coming home in a uniform from basic?
The neighbors were great. They all wanted to meet the newcomer. And they all came out and greeted me. And,
well, that's great. I mean,
they were
nice.
They were nice.
Where did you report to next?
Well, I reported back to OGU, outgoing unit. And I was there doing dishes and whatever for about 5 days. And then I got signed to a school up in Wapping, North Dakota.
What type of a school was that?
Machinist mate school.
So how long were you there?
4 months.
School, 4 months?
Yeah. And I graduated 23rd out of 125.
Now, did you get any rank?
Yeah, I got fireman first class.
You were upgraded after
Upgraded
that course?
one step. Yeah.
After Wapaton, where did you go?
Went to Norfolk, Virginia for 6 weeks. Waiting to pick up a ship in Orange, Texas. And they didn't have much for us to do, so they used to load us on trucks every day, and we'd go out and do work around the base. And then every day they'd scratch a line on your sea bag, meaning that you had to wash it again. Every day. So 6 weeks we washed sea bags.
This just kept you busy.
Yeah, it just kept us busy and showed who was the boss. Our captain, executive officer, and first lieutenant were there, just like it was going to be on the ship.
So these were all the men that you were going to be on the ship with?
Right, the officers and stuff.
Okay. And where did you go after Norfolk?
Went down to Orange, Texas.
And this is where you
Picked up the ship.
you picked up your ship.
Yeah.
What ship was that?
That was the USS Scroggins, D-799.
Now you mentioned you were original.
I was one of the plank owners. That's the member of the original crew when it was commissioned.
And they were called plank owners.
Plank owners, yeah.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that. I just, it's like a charter member.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Now,
And I rode it all the way around until the last day. And then it went in mothballs.
you were on that ship
From there on in, all the time, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What was your basic job once you got on the ship?
Well, I was at first I was a fireman, and I was on the very lowest level, down taking care of the pumps. And then I was a third-class petty officer and a second-class petty officer. When I reached first-class petty officer, I was on the upper level, making out the logs, and from there I went into the engineering log room, and I didn't have to stand watches anymore. I was making out the Liberty list, and I was checking the water every day. I was checking the oil supply every day, and I had more or less control of all the engine spaces at sometimes because the chiefs weren't there or whatever. You know, it all depended. I was one step below the chiefs who were the highest rank in the engine rooms.
Oh, okay. And where did you go after Texas? Now you got your ship.
Well, we went to Bermuda, down to the Gulf of Mexico, over to around Florida, and over to Bermuda.
What did you do in Bermuda?
We had a shakedown cruise, and that meant that they shook down the crew and the ship itself. So what they would do is drop depth charges that should have been dropped at 250 feet. They dropped them at 35 feet, and going like 30 knots, or not 30 knots, like 20 knots, and test the hull. But it also tested a lot of things that they didn't want tested, which was they would trip out the generators. The engine rooms were pitch black. They no lights and all, and the concussion was terrific. 13 depth charges with 200 pounds of TNT in them. That's a lot of banging. And one of our guys just didn't make it. They had to ship him off there.
Really? Couldn't take the pressure?
Couldn't take the pressure.
Now this was basically all training with the ship, getting yourself.
Taking on fuel was one of the ones that they did at Bermuda. And what happened was, I was there aboard the ship. There's 3 repair ships, 6 men in each one, and what their job was to repair anything that happened. Like if a hole occurred in the side of the ship, they were to plug it. But also, what they did is other things. So the lieutenant come down and he said to me, "Get your life jacket on," which I had just a rubber one, and he didn't have one on, by the way. But the two of us walked up to the top deck, and my job was to put the hose in the where the receptacle was for the fuel. So when we got up there, I kind of looked to the left, and I see this depth charge was all crushed in. And what happened was the 2 ships were going alongside of each other, and they should stay alongside and not go in and out. Well, what happened was we were very, very right off the farm, so everybody was learning.
Yeah.
And what happened was the captain went too close to the tanker and smashed into the tanker, and when he bounced off the tanker, you know, the depth charge racks were banged. That's what happened. Well, I didn't know that. They had already tried twice to get that hose in and failed. So when I came up, he was in front of me, and they just shot a line from the tanker over to our ship, which they had taken off the 2 cables on the front end or the side of the ship. And when he was walking with me, the line came from the tanker around this. Instead of putting it around the stay, he put it around a stanchion, which is a piece of pipe, 1.25 inch pipe.
Yeah.
And they had 15 guys in the deck force up in the forecastle pulling on it to pull the rope around and pull the fuel trunk in, you know. So anyway, I looked and the stanchion was bending. It was bending toward us, and the lieutenant was on one side of the rope and I'm on the other. It hit him in the chest and he went over to the side.
Wow.
And I couldn't find him at first. And then when I looked down, I seen his fingers. So I went down to grab him, and I grabbed him by the shoulder, and there was another guy up there, and he banged his foot on the deck and said, "Wait." So we all stayed right there, and this guy's like 180 pounds, and there's a lip on the side that comes up on the side of the ship, and that's what he had his fingers on.
He was hanging by his fingers.
Hanging by his fingers. So anyway, the other guy and I pulled him up, and our first lieutenant was back.
How long were you there in Bermuda? With this
We were there about a month.
About a month? And after Bermuda, where did you go?
Well, we went to Norfolk, Virginia to pick up a convoy.
In
Well,
Norfolk?
wait a minute. We went to Boston first to get our ship fixed. Because what it did is when we ran the side of the Kennebec, which was a tanker, one of our rudders got broken. So they went into Boston and put us in dry dock and repaired it.
They repaired, and then you
Then we
went
went to Norfolk.
Norfolk.
Yeah.
And when was that you went to Norfolk?
We took the convoy out the 1st of June, 1944.
1st of June. Now where was this convoy going?
Bizerti, North Africa.
Bizerti.
Yeah.
What was the purpose?
Well, it was to supply the troops, and we were bringing anything from tanks, planes, whatever happened to be on them ships, to North Africa to supply the war effort.
You were the escort for the supply ships?
Yeah, we were on the outside of the convoy. It was we were in Escort Division 62. There was 6 ships. And so they probably had 2 or 3 escort divisions around that convoy. They used to have about 150 ships inside the convoy.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize they were that large.
Yeah.
Now, how long did this convoy take?
It took us 3 weeks over and 3 weeks back. And the hairy part of it was going in through Gibraltar. We all had to go in through and into a small space. And there were ships on the other side in the Mediterranean and ships out in the Atlantic, making sure that they went through. And plus we had to worry about the planes. Germans had planes, the Air Force over there. So when they got through Gibraltar, we had it made.
Once you were safe, basically, through Gibraltar. Now, how many of these convoys did you make?
Well, we made 3.
3?
Yeah.
And they're basically around about a month and a half each trip?
Yeah, about a month and a half each trip. The last one was 5 weeks. I think that they wanted us back this side of the Atlantic, up in the North Atlantic, because of Operation Teardrop, which was, they had a missile scare. They thought the Germans could put missiles into New York from the subs. But it turns out that it couldn't happen because they weren't prepared for that.
Yeah. So they shortened that last convoy.
Yeah, they shortened the last convoy.
Now you mentioned something about the Azores.
Well, we used to come out of Bizerti and go across the Mediterranean over to Sicily and fuel up at Palermo. And of course, it took a lot of oil and stuff for running them ships. But then we'd go out to back through Gibraltar and out into the Atlantic and stop at the Azores for more fuel. And then we'd go from there up to the North Atlantic or wherever, something like that.
How many times did you have to refuel while you were on one of these convoys?
Well, we refueled going over. From Norfolk, we didn't have to refuel.
You didn't have to
We
refuel?
didn't have to stop at Azores. We just kept going right straight over. But then on the way back, we had a longer way to go up in Newfoundland and up that way. So they would refuel at Azores on the way back.
Oh, I hadn't asked you this before, but it just come to my mind. During these 3 convoys, did you ever have any incidences where you ever attacked?
Well, we had planes that where we got into Gibraltar was really hairy for us because we didn't have no air cover. We did our own air cover with with 40 millimeters. We had 20s and 40s. And we had 3-inch 50s that could shoot right straight up. So we, you know, it was, at times we were general quarters here and there.
Yeah.
And nothing ever occurred. You know, we had guys, one reconnaissance plane or something go over. It scared the hell out of us.
I was going to say, you had some scares,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that was it. Okay. After your convoys, where did you go next?
Well,
After you did these 3 convoys?
we went to back to Boston, and then we went up into Halifax, Nova Scotia, and St. John's, Newfoundland.
Now you mentioned Portland, Maine.
Yes, we were. That was we pulled into Portland. The last of the convoy was November 27th, 1944. So on the 29th of November, the Germans sent a U-boat over with 2 spies on it. And the spies got off at a bluff that was near Portland on the 29th of November. And the 30th of November was my birthday, and they sent me out on shore patrol. So when I got out there, I met a shore patrolman that was stationed in Portland, and he told me, he says, get all your crew together. You're going out emergency. So I went around as quickly as I could and to get as many as I could, but I missed a lot of them, which I knew, but I brought back the ones that I could get back.
They were on authorized leave.
They were on authorized leave because our sister ship, the 800, had engine trouble, so when we went into Portland, it stayed there. They had their engines fixed. So when we went back to our ship and it pulled out, we had 31 seamen or sailors that were on the 800 that should have been on our ship. So they stayed in port while we were out at sea. And we were missing 31 of our crew. When we got out there, that was on the 6th of December, which is like 4 or 5 days later.
Yeah.
We got a contact on what we thought was a submarine, and I was on watch, and they had a fella come down, relieve me to go to supper. So I went walking on the deck. I see these hedgehogs up in the air, and there were 24 rockets, and they went down in the water, and when they blew up, it was a big explosion. When it blew up, the debris from that thing all came up to the top. But we got the word that it wasn't a sub, it was a non-sub. And what it was is, nobody seems to know, but it might have been a ship that got sunk before. We got the contact on the sonar on it. And you can't tell, just the pinging on the sonar, you can't tell what it is. So we did a lot of that, and we would get stuff to come out of the water, but we didn't know what it was.
You didn't know what it was?
It was.
Now, you mentioned the hedgehog. Basically, I'd never heard of a hedgehog before until I talked with you.
Yeah.
What was this? Can you describe what it did?
It had a projector that on the front end of the ship was like a triangle shape, and it had all these rockets in it, 24 rockets. And a full hedgehog attack would be using all the 24 rockets, and that's what we did. We shot it up in the air, 24 rockets, and when they all come down, if one goes off, the whole 24 go off. So that's a hedgehog.
So it's similar to a depth charge, but a lot larger.
Yeah. A depth charge is larger in size than one of them rockets, but the 24 rockets are a lot more explosive than one depth charge.
They cover a larger area.
A larger area.
Okay. Now, how long were you up in the North Pacific?
North Atlantic.
North Atlantic, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How long were you up there?
We were up there from, we came back from the Mediterranean, and the last day was the 27th of November, and we were up there from that time, and we sunk a German U-boat on the 19th of April, so we were up there all that winter.
A little over 6 months.
Yeah.
In the winter.
Yeah. It was the worst winter in 40 years.
I was just going to say, was it cold up there?
It was cold.
Now, after that, earlier you had mentioned Operation Teardrop. Now, this was after you come down?
Yeah, Operation Teardrop was, well, it was on, let's see, that was on 19th of November too as well. We went from November, and Operation Teardrop was on April, where we sank that sub. It was all the way, it was beginning of spring actually. And Operation Teardrop was that missile, they were scared that the Germans were going to put a missile attack on New York City. But what they had was two barriers, and we sunk the German U-boat on the 19th of April, and on the 20th they set the barriers up. So when we sunk it, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, we couldn't see anything anyway. But when dawn came, we looked out, there was nothing there. So we were going from Halifax to New York. We weren't connected with the Operation Teardrop. Our ships were 4 DEs, which consisted of the Buckley, the Reuben James, the Scroggins, and the Wilk was a unit, a task unit, and we were going to go to New York, but we ran into this sub. In Operation Teardrop, the other 4 ships that were on a convoy with us were in that Operation Teardrop. And the Navy, of course, goes by numbers. The first 4 ships goes here, the other 2 ships go there. That's what happened.
Where was it? Where did this take place? The operation itself.
Operation itself was right off of Halifax.
Oh, okay.
It was south of Halifax is where it was. It was about where the Gulf of Maine is.
Yeah, that's okay. You mentioned that earlier.
It was right at the mouth of the Gulf of Maine.
Now, another thing, as we were driving up here today, you mentioned that sub, and you remembered what?
Well, the submarine that let the 2 spies off was the 1230, U-boat 1230.
You remembered the number?
Yeah, yeah. And the one we sunk was the U-boat 879, which was a snorkel sub. It was a new sub. So it was sitting in a cove, and it was pointing in the direction of Operation Teardrop, but we got it the day before. The barriers were set up, and they arrived to for that Operation Teardrop.
So you literally sank the sub even before they set up?
Yeah, there was 4 aircraft carriers. The way it was set up was there was 20 DEs and 2 carriers, 1 on each end. And this thing was sitting in the Gulf of Maine, looking in that direction, pointing in that direction, and we came down from Halifax, ran into it, and sunk it the day before. So when it could have picked off a carrier on each end, or it could have picked off any one of them DEs that were in between.
So you were lucky when you found it and
Yep.
sunk it.
Yep.
Now, after Operation Teardrop, what were you doing next? Where did you go next?
Well, we went on VE Day. We were in Norfolk, and they figured that maybe the submarines would give up. They were giving up along the coast. Most of them gave up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, at the sub base there.
They were surrendering?
They were surrendering, yeah. Because VE Day was May 8th, and we were in Norfolk for that day. Engines running and waiting for the subs to come to give up, but we didn't have to move.
None came into your port?
No.
You mentioned something about training when you were down in New London.
Yeah, we used to train with the subs. The submarines used to fire, they'd fire a torpedo under us. But one time there, they fired it right into the middle of us. And they had aimed it too high. And it hit us in the midships, and right next to the laundry room, and 2 guys got knocked off their feet, but that's about all the damage it did. It was a practice torpedo.
Was a dummy round.
Dummy torpedo.
Well,
no explosive in it.
Well, luckily,
Yeah.
thank God it was the training. All right, later on you said you went down south further.
Yeah, we were working with the Guadalcanal training pilots down in Miami, Florida.
You went down to Miami?
Mayport, Florida. And then we went to Miami as well. And what we would do is we'd go alongside the carrier, and when the flyers go over the top of the carrier, they'd go up down the other side, we'd pick them up out of the water. And, you know, so the plane was gone because it sank, but we'd pick up the pilot.
They'd literally go off.
Oh yeah, they'd go right off the end. You know, they were learning how to land on the carrier. So sometimes they'd come in too high, they'd flag them off, they'd go back up around again, make another run, and then sometimes they would attempt it, and they would kind of like bounce and then off the other end. They'd go right off the end of the water.
And your job was to pick up
them
the
up.
survivors?
We'd swing around and pick up the pilot.
Wow. And then you were coming back up. Then you came back up the coast. You were traveling back and forth along the coast.
Yeah, we're up and down. They didn't have much for us to do. They were going to change us into a radar picket ship because before the atomic bomb was dropped on Japan, they were going to invade Japan. So they had a big convoy, and they wanted all these destroyers. They picked out 20 Buckley-class destroyer escorts to go over there, but they had to change the configuration of the destroyer. But that's what destroyers were. If they needed a 5-inch gun, they'd put it on. If they only had submarines and they only needed the 3-inch 50s, they'd put them on. And that's what we had. But over there, we needed 5-inch guns. All these 20 destroyer escorts that they selected had to be changed. So what they had to do is take off some of the guns and put some more on, you know, different type. So what happened was we were doing all these things in the East Coast for just the waiting. We were waiting a lot of time. We were moored in port because of the fact that they didn't have a lot for us to do it because our job was done in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, and we had to go over there, but we couldn't go over the way we were.
So you're basically just sitting and waiting for the invasion.
So what they did is they had some, there's 5 or 6 of them that were made into APDs and like transports for personnel transport. Others, the only one that really got to be a radar picket ship vessel was the USS Buckley. That was the leader of the 20 ships, 20 DE. And even that didn't have to go because when they dropped the bomb, everything stopped.
Oh, really? So now
Yeah.
it's basically all over?
Yeah. It was all over after the bombs were stopped. 2 bombs were exploded in Japan.
So where did you end up, you know, when
Well, I rode the ship all the way to, I got out of I was transferred from the ship over to Charleston, South Carolina. And I just, I got off the ship the day before it went into mothballs.
So the ship literally went into mothballs the day after you got out?
Yeah.
So you were on this ship?
All the time.
All the
time
time
it was commissioned.
And they built this ship for the war.
Yeah.
And it was only used for 3 years.
By the way, they built 565 of these.
565.
In 3 years. That goes to show you how our production, industrial production has gone down. Wow. We were 100% in World War II, and now we're about 15%.
It just seems strange to me that they'd build this ship and after 3 years just put it in mothballs.
Well, they had the production, and some of the ships were used as the training ships and stuff, like the 800, for instance. It was as a training ship. It went into the 50s.
Oh, they was stayed in the Navy, and they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't. Some of them they didn't decommission.
Oh, okay. So.
But there weren't too many that were in the Korean War either. They had a Korean War. It was 5 years later.
Yeah.
So they had a few DEs left by then.
For the Korean War.
For the Korean War.
Where were you discharged from?
I was discharged from Boston.
Boston.
I had 31 guys to bring up, 30 guys to bring up to Boston. From Charleston. Oh. They gave me their papers, and they told me that I was in charge of these 30 guys, and we'd like to have them all get safely where they're going. So I had my order.
Did you get them there safely?
I got them there safely, and I got myself there safely to Boston.
There must have been one heck of a job getting these
Oh
31
yeah,
men
yeah.
back.
They were happy as hell. And they wanted to get home, and they were cutting up a little here and there, but we made it all right.
Y'all made it. Do you have any memories of that day?
No, not too many. Just that we were on a train, and we got to New York. When we got up to New York, the Army wanted our train, so they asked where the guy is in charge of the sailors. So he come over to me and he said, "We gotta. I hate to tell you this, but we gotta have this train. So what we'll do is we'll give you a nicer train." And he said, "But you'll have to get off and redo all these guys' orders over it from moving from Grand Central Station from Penn Station to Grand Central. You got to rewrite all their orders." So I had to go rewrite the orders, and getting 30 guys across New York and getting them all there, had a little worries.
All right, now you're discharged from Boston.
Yeah,
You come home then?
yeah, I came home on a train.
And I'm going to say you must have landed in the Union Station in Pittsfield.
That's where I started. That's where my father picked me up.
I think about 98% of the fellas that returned
Yeah,
came through Union Station.
yeah.
Was it hard to adjust to civilian life?
Well, it wasn't too bad. No, it was. I was glad to be home, and I was going with my wife, and we got married next November.
Did you go back to work right away?
No, I couldn't find a job for months. They made a job for me down in back of Ingleburg in E.D. Jones's. They
Yeah.
made it. They knew I had the machine shop training, so they said that if you wanted to, take any job we haven't got a job, but we got a new machine coming in, and if you don't mind doing odd jobs or whatever we have to assign you to, then we'll have a job when the machine arrives. So that's what I did. I was a crib keeper down in where they were putting the machines together. And the guys were taking the stuff out and throwing it all over the thing, and they wouldn't bring it back. So I had to get some tickets and give them the tickets. And when they brought the tool in, they get the, they could put it in the rack again and ticket.
How many years were you there?
I was there 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. Then they laid us all off. We had a recession in 1949. They cleaned the place right out. So then in 1950, I started in the GE, and I was there 35 and a half years.
What did you do at GE?
First of all, I was a tool room machinist. First of all, I was a turret lathe operator on production work. Then I went into tool room as a Class C tool room machinist, and I worked my way from tool room machinist, Class C to B to A, and then I went into tool making, Class C toolmaker, Class B toolmaker, and Class A toolmaker, and I was a group leader. So I was a group leader when I retired.
What year did you retire?
86. 1986.
Wow. Enjoyed 21 years of retirement.
Yeah, they said I could go at 60, so I went, and they paid me till I was 62. The money difference in the money for Social Security until the Social Security took over at 62.
And you mentioned you did get married. Did you have any children?
Yeah, we got a girl, Ann, and a boy, Bill. Yeah, a boy and a girl.
Did you keep in touch with any of your buddies?
Well, a few of them, yeah. But I was going to get a reunion together, and all I could get was 6 guys. I don't know where they all went. And I advertised in, I belong to the Destroyer Escort Sailors Association. And they have a newspaper, they put out every so often. So I advertised in there for all the Scroggins members, but they had to change the captioning before they could get rid of me, because I was there all the time for a whole year and a half. Nobody answered it.
You mentioned the Scroggins. That was the ship you were on. I don't know if we had mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
It was the USS Scroggins?
D-799.
Yeah. Did you join any veterans organizations?
VFW.
That was the only one?
Yeah.
Do you feel that your service experience had a positive or a negative effect on your life?
It had a positive, very much so, a positive effect on me. First of all, you know how to take orders, and you know that you got to be there. And you know that you got to get your job done. And regardless of what happens, your job has got to be done. And it's a good training. I would say it's a good training for everybody, really.
That's good. I know that we have some pictures that we'd like to show. So at this time, we'd like to show these pictures.
Sure.
Okay, Bill. This is your boot camp photograph. Could you explain it?
Well, this is when I come back from Sampson, New York, on boot camp leave. And I was about 17 and all ready to go. Oh, I had a red stripe on there, and that signifies that I was a striker for engineering striker. And it's a red stripe. This is the ship I was assigned to, the USS Scroggins, the D-799. And I was in the engine room, and I was a machinist mate striker on board, and I got to be a third-class petty officer, then a second class, and a first class. And we're all in the engine room. At the latest thing, I had an office, and I used to take care of all the water and Liberty parties and all the clerical work in the engineering spaces. And these are ships that the German General Rommel sank, and he was going from North Africa to Sicily, so that we couldn't get in the harbor to supply the troops with supplies.
What harbor was this?
This
Bill?
is Bizerte, North Africa.
Okay. Bill, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences.
I want to thank you for your time.
Service for the country.
Thank you, John. I want to thank you for your service to your country, too.
Okay.
Thank you.